Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lighthouse Sessions. I'm really excited to have my friend Eryn Anitavi with us today. Eryn, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Indeed. Let's see here. I love business systems, neurodivergency, leadership, public speaking, and just helping all of us who lead companies feel a little bit less alone and like, why is this happening? Why is this so hard for me? Yeah, it's not. It's very normal.
I love it. And by the way, Eryn and I could probably go on about 1,000 tangents here. We could probably talk about systems and processes all day. We could probably talk about neurodivergence. Let's start, and then the universe will guide us. You are neurodiverse, and we'll talk about what that means to you. And you like systems and processes. Now, I get it, but I want to explore that because I think a lot of, Jeff, 5 years ago, I saw systems and processes as something meant to torture me. And now I'm learning to embrace them. Somebody say, do you want systems and processes? And I'm like, why didn't you just ask me if I wanted to go on the rack and be tortured?
That's amazing.
So, with that, and I've learned that Gino Wickman of Traction and EOS, I used to think he was just some sort of sadist that was out here to torture people until I realized he is, in fact, a visionary entrepreneur, and he created EOS to keep himself sane, more or less.
Yes. There's a lot. And funny enough, I actually have a system that I think is better than EOS.
Oh, do tell. We will explore.
We'll get there. It's not quite right. It's still baking, but getting there. It's going to be very, very interesting. The conflict between let's see here, ADHD and autism, where ADHD is like, we don't need patterns, we don't need routines, we don't need anything. No. Not going to. And then autism is like, but please, we just need a pattern and we just need a routine. And so there's this it's like, it's a thing. So the systems and the patterns is not necessarily something that is done consistently every single time, but it is a set of activities. So it might be like, well, I like to go to the gym on the weekends. Okay, so that's my system. That's the routine. I do this, and this is what happens, right? I'll pick up coffee, but it's not at 10 a.m. It might be Saturday, it might be Sunday. It might be in the morning, it might be in the afternoon. But if Monday rolls around and I don't, well, then I'm like, oh, shoot, something's wrong. Something's off. What did I not do? And then I'm all discombobulated. So systems don't necessarily have to be rigid per time of day. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. And I think you've beautifully described the conflict between, I have autism, ADHD, and OCD. So it's like, oh, good God. Which crazy person's driving the bus right now?
Oh, yeah, we are our own worst enemies, right? Oh, man.
There's a reason most cars only have one steering wheel, one set of brakes, one gas pedal. It's like some days I'm riding that clutch and my foot is on the gas and on the brake at the same time, and it's like, okay, this is tiring. So let's talk about that energy, because I think you are one of my favorite people because you balance it well. And I think it's fair. I'm just going to point out that the people I hang out with are visionary entrepreneurs, and spoiler alert, most of us are on a spectrum or 2 or 3. But what I find fascinating is that the world wants to tell us we're too much or that we need to simmer down. And I think you and we connected over this conversation that it's not about turning ourselves down. It's about finding and building the places where we can turn the volume up full on and let it run. So how does that show up in your world?
it took some experimentation, right? Because neurodiversity didn't actually come into the map until about 2 years ago. And before then, it was it was the panic and the freak out, like, okay, what's happening to me? Why is my brain doing this? Why am I having a hard time getting out of bed today? Wait, why am I running 24 hours without sleep today? It's just this back and forth tug and pull, and that was so incredibly stressful, and is. And so many of the leaders that I get to talk to and get to meet experience this. But when you take into consideration in some forms of neurodiversity, they call it spoons, right? How many spoons do you have is a term. And energy regulation, a lot of times we'll chase the dopamine, we will chase those positive experiences, and we don't really know why, right? Like urgency, a lot of it's time management, calendar management, structuring when things happen and how you do your business routines. That's one thing. But if it's dopamine regulation versus time management, there's a really big difference between those. And I don't think that we talk enough about that difference. It's like, I need the urgency in order to push something into gear, is not the same thing as I do this at 10 a.m. every day.
Well, it's funny because I'm relatively new to the insights. It's been the last couple of years. I've spent a lot of my life where, things would be scheduled and then it was like, not happening, and you're beating yourself up going, what's wrong with me? And, I genuinely, like a lot of entrepreneurs, I thought I was broken. I did realize, and thank God, I am unemployable, because I was like, I don't want to work. I wake up at 2 a.m. with an idea chewing on my brain. I'm not hitting the snooze button going, okay, go back to sleep. It's like, okay, I guess I'm getting up. My wife just like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, something grabbed a hold.
I thought I had a new idea. Yeah, and it'll just spin and spin and spin until you write it down. Like that's one of those leadership things. And one of the stories that or analogies that I like to make is in neurodiversity, say like 30 years ago, nobody wanted to hear about our cool rock collections. They're just like, oh my God, you're on it again. Like, okay, just take you and your curl, like just whatever. You don't care right now, shush. Yeah. And then the internet comes out and it's like, oh, actually, we now have websites for our cool rock collection. We have forums we have vlogs for our cool rock collection.
Communities.
Explosion. You like cool rocks too? and then short form video comes onto the play. Yeah. And now our cool rock collections are making us famous, and people want 85,000 videos on our cool rock collections. Like, tell me all of them. And so the perception on the social front, because we're the one making the content, is that, everybody is making content. Everybody's a little bit neurodivergent. No, because millions of people were making content, that would not. Yeah. The minority is making content, but we are charismatic and focused and dedicated, and good heavens, can we talk about things forever?
Get two of us in a room and get out of the way.
Oh, goodness, right? Yeah. So,
well, it's funny, Eryn, because I started my podcast because I wanted to meet other people like me. And for what it's worth, I've had a few false starts where I'm like, oh, that sounds like clever branding. And then I'm like, okay, I'm boring myself to death here. But when I gave myself permission to just talk to visionary entrepreneurs, and you introduced me to Stone Guy through your network, which we'll talk about. You get a couple of us on a podcast together, and it is fun. Like, yeah. And there's no rules. It's not, okay, we don't have an adult in the room, so God help us, we're going to see where this goes.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing. The whole point of this podcast is somebody's watching this and going, I like those two. I want to hang out with Eryn more. How do I reach her? And that was the whole intent of the podcast.
No, but people don't care until they care. So,
Yeah.
it's like one of those, it's like, oh yeah, everybody's got a business. Everybody's got a thing. We all have our cool rock collections. And I collect neurotic leaders. That's my collection. I'm like, oh, tell me what is keeping you up at 2 a.m.
It's a shiny drawer of distractions for sure. And by the way, Eryn, you and I connected immediately when you told me what you do, because I'm going to be really honest. I've met a lot of very neurotypical, I call them single monkey, single narrative virtual assistants. And I'm going to be honest, we piss each other off. Like, it's just, it's like, why can't you understand that this memo is not about the one thing you wrote at the top of the page? We changed gears 5 sentences ago, So I love that there are, for every neurotypical VA, I want to know more neurodiverse ones, because most, and again, nothing against them, they can't keep up with me. And quite frankly, I can't slow down enough for them to keep up.
Well, and you shouldn't have to. Right? In when it comes to, and part of business systems is executive support, which is where Sapphire and my company is kind of based. Although I've settled into this very interesting niche over the years, and the executive support, by the time you're ready for it, it looks a lot different than if you're a neurodivergent entrepreneur trying to figure out how to ask for help, right? We know that we need help, but how do we ask? What are we asking for? Gravitating towards the concept of virtual assistants, the offshore support that is very common for newer entrepreneurs to go to. And they're okay, but the odds are that it's gonna not do what you want it to do, right? After 3 months, 4 months, there's going to be a level of frustration there that is a little bit of a struggle. And why, right? That's where I love to hang out, is in the why. and when you don't know why it's not working, you don't know what questions to ask. And that's the playground that I like to be on, is what are we not asking? Why is this particular thing happening? Why is it hard for me here, not hard for me here? Right? I build that map for the people that we work with so that you know exactly what kind of support you need, and that you can get on with your vision building. Because when you feel like, oh, I have to keep this other person busy, I have to figure out how to do this, there's no room for it.
Yeah, it's exhausting too.
Yeah. And then if you get a really good assistant, awesome. But it's kind of a needle in a haystack.
Well, and for what it's worth, I don't know if I shared this, but at one point I read, again, neurodiverse. I read Dan Sullivan, Ben Hardy's Who Not How.
Oh, beautiful book. Yes.
Terrible book.
Terrible book. Oh my gosh, I love it.
No. I love the book. But of course my brain went, oh, I need a bunch of who's. So
you're like, wait a minute, but how do I ask? How do I get my who's?
Well, for what it's worth, I jump all in. And of course, so I blame me. It was all me, not the book. I went and hired 10 VAs in the Philippines.
Oh dear.
And because, if one is good, 10 must be better.
Oh dear.
But it was a little like trying to sleep in a tent at night with the mosquitoes, because they were like, okay, Jeff, give us something to do. Okay, we're ready. And I made the mistake of thinking, and again, I learned this lesson very quickly. I assumed that I'd say, here's what we want to accomplish, go figure it out.
No.
The people in the Philippines, especially the ones who work for VA centers and things, they want to know, here's what to do, here's the next step, blah, blah, blah. And literally, they'll be like, okay, I did this step, what's the next step? And I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, just...
Yes. Yeah, it's the difference between the difference between virtual assistants, offshore virtual assistants, and executive support or genuine support that is tailored for the visionary, for, whether or not you're neurodivergent, that part is less important. Grounded by one of my favorite quotes: when you build for the minority, you make it better for the majority. But if you build for the majority, you alienate the minority. So we build for the minority, which makes it better for everybody else. So the difference between somebody saying, hey, Jeff, what do you need help with? Oh my God, I need help with everything, but I can't I don't know how to ask for that.
Yeah. If I knew what I needed help with, I'd ask for help.
It would be a thing, right? So then when you have that high level person, or what the structure of the system is, it's, hey, Jeff, based on what we're working on, based on our objectives, this and this and this and this are priorities. So based on all of that, these are the things that I'm going to work on. Do you want to adjust that? Do you want to reprioritize that? Feels way different than the former, right? So you have to, but in order for that person to be able to do these things, like, you need the system in place to capture that. So, like, for example, one of the systems that I really like that we have is called Daily Intentions. And in some forms of neurodivergence, we don't really like it when people tell us what to do. I don't know. Have you experienced that?
I have a stubborn inner child that will stamp his feet like you can't believe.
But when we tell ourselves what to do, sometimes this works out better. This can work out better.
Yep.
So using AI and automation, we will prompt you multiple, twice time, 2, 3, whatever you need, right? Because everything is tailored to the person, for your intentions that day. What do you intend on accomplishing? You message us back, audio or text, whatever works. These are the things that I intend to do. Then at the end of the day, we'll check back. What did you get done? How did you do? What did you start? What did you not finish? What did you deprioritize, right, on your list? And you can use an emoji, you can use, whatever you need. Each person gets a customized dashboard that has the subject and the categories of your intentions. So like self-care, client success, finance, whatever it is that exists within your company. Well, after about a week, you start to see patterns in your intentions, like, oh, I'm intending to self-care and these things every single day. Well, at the end of the day, if you deprioritize it, why? What's happening? So then at the end of the month, your insights are powerful, because you're like, oh, 17 days out of this entire month, I intended to get back to clients and build relationship management. But 17 days out of the month, that didn't happen. So now we get to look. Now we know where to drill, where to why. Why is this not? What doesn't exist in your day-to-day or in your systems that is preventing? Because in the morning, right, you're like gung-ho. You're like, oh man, I'm going to do this. So then what happens that you don't? You may not see that. So when we get to show you in a graph and you get to see the dashboard, now you're empowered to make decisions. Now you're empowered to build these systems. So that's just like one example of how do we get inside your mind? Yeah.
Well, and I'll point out our first conversation, we talked about energy management, because I think, the myth of productivity is, I just need to do more things and I'm going to have a more productive, better life. And it's like, no. For me, sometimes I say yes. And again, this is my weird brain. It'll say, yeah, that sounds interesting. What I meant to say was, yes, that sounds interesting. But next thing I know, I'm volunteering to manage a committee. And it's like, wait. How did I get here? And I have a friend who he keeps sending me. He's like, Jeff, I'm stuck on my website. I know you know how to do this. Could you help me do this? And I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, no, I hate your website. I hate web development. Please stop asking. And I always get, I've roped into, but you're good at it. And it's like, yes, I'm good at 1,000 things. Doesn't mean I should do 990 of them.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is one of my favorite topics. And I have a high risk factor of monologuing. So feel free to interrupt me because I love energy regulation. Okay. Yes. We get a lot of forms of neurodivergence as a superpower, right? Like this is something that we are really good at. But where you have a superpower, you also have kryptonite. You don't get one without the other. You don't get all of the benefit of one without the other. So while we may be able to do 18-hour uninterrupted work sessions, there's also going to be periods where we can't get out of bed. Or there's going to be decision paralysis, right? Where you sit there and you're like, okay, just write the email. And you literally can't make your hands go up to the keyboard and writing the email, right? It's just like, you just sit there and stare at it. You're like, this isn't hard, just write the email. But there is a neurological thing in the paralysis piece, right? And so then we can spiral down this, the inner critic and the negative, all of the stuff like, oh my gosh, like, why can't I just write this email? Right? Oh, it's procrastination. It's this. No. So decision.
And it's so helpful when other people say, oh, by the way, you could just, it'll only take you 5 minutes. Yes.
I hate those. Yes. It's like, but we know that, right? We know. And so when it comes to one of the systems that we've created is called the clarity matrix. And in business, I have seen when it comes to goal strategy and planning and all of these things, there are usually two different camps that businesses fall in. One is proficiency. We want you to be good at things, right? Resumes are very based in proficiency. Be good at this. We want to make sure, like, yes, you can do this. You're very, all these things. And then you have the other side, which is self-care. And we want to make sure that you are happy, right? Well, positivity. So when you have a business that is proficient without positivity, you're telling half the story. When you have a business that is positive without proficiency, you have half the story. And all of the systems and strategies that I have studied, they don't merge the two. They fall into this one over here, and maybe they might pull a strip, but it's not enough. You have to blend proficiency and positivity. So we call that working in your brilliance. When you are working in proficiency and positivity, you are in your brilliance. And when it comes to energy, a lot of the strategies and things like, well, do activities that give you energy. Okay, yes. However, energy is kind of like calories. So it's really impossible to do activities that give energy. You're doing activities that burn energy slower. Yeah. Like it'd be like going into the sun and being like, I'm going to get enough calories for me to exist. No, you have to eat food to get calories. Right?
There is actually some celebrity that had a all sunshine diet, and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound healthy.
I remember reading, I think maybe that's where I crawled into my head. So the energy that you burn is dependent on the activities that you're doing. Well, in my clarity matrix, the opposite of brilliance is what we call shattered, which is, you are practicing at something and it is not positive, it is negative. So if you are working on activities that you are neither proficient in nor give you positive, nor they're not wrapped in positivity, you're going to burn energy way faster in that category than you would if you were in your brilliance. So when you balance the things that you're trying to accomplish with your energy and positivity and proficiency, this is the core of leadership and running strong companies, because your margins and your effectiveness are based in whether or not your team and yourself is working in brilliance. You can't just run on one side or the other. And with energy, that 18 hours or the day that you can't get out of bed, or this activity versus that activity, energy is not created equal. We have different kinds of energy. So you have social energy, you have planning or thinking energy, mental energy, you have movement, and these different categories of energy depend on the activities that we're doing. And the recovery is entirely dependent on the type of energy that you're burning. So if you are, it's like a battery, like a remote control. If you have 4 batteries in a remote and one of those batteries is dead, the remote doesn't work.
Yeah.
So if you are socially burned out, are you going to emotionally show up for the people in your world?
Probably not.
Right? It's going to be really hard.
Yeah.
So you have to blend these together: your recovery, your energy, your activity, your positivity, your proficiency. There's a lot of dynamics that you want to build into your structures. And when we only get one of those or 2 of those, this is where we get burnout. This is where we get decision paralysis. This is where we get turnover and lack of profitability issues. All of these things blend. And this is what I love to do, is ask these questions, right? And finding that balance for each person.
I love it. And I will share, and then I sadly have to wrap up. I joke that I can get more done in a morning than most people will get done in a month, but sometimes it takes me a month to get there. I am hyper productive, but sometimes it's like, that inner child says, I don't want to, it's.
Yeah. But the why, right? Why?
Yeah.
There's going to be a tie into energy. There's going to be a tie into the clarity matrix. Because if you're in that brilliance, things become so smooth and so easy. But if you have things that are there's a lot of nuance to it.
I built an AI to help me eliminate things, because again, it's, there are things that I could do. Give me a whiteboard and I forget that I've spent 14 hours in front of it. Give me a website to tweak and 14 seconds feels like 15 hours. So now, Eryn, I could talk to you all the day, and you and I will have more conversations because you're going to be a huge part of our community. Where can people go to learn more about you, Sapphire, and quite frankly, I'm just going to say, have a conversation about neurodiversity? A friend of mine says neurospicy, and I love that phrase.
Love that. Yes, the spice cabinet is rich and full of many colors.
Love it.
I'm very loud on social media. I think I have something on every single platform. I do public speaking, and our website, choosesapphire.com. We're on, we're basically everywhere. I'm on LinkedIn. Is probably my favorite one, but I'm easy to find.
Love it. And I will connect anyone who wants to meet Eryn and who can't find the link in the show notes below. I will personally connect you, because Eryn is one of my favorite people. Eryn, I want to thank you for hanging out with me today.
So fantastic. Thank you so much, Jeff.